effectively. Jordan Brooks has the details.
The Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras told EU parliamentarians in Strasbourg that European nations must stand together to fight extremism and avoid sliding back into the past as he looked on to the upcoming EU elections in 2019. The firebrand leftist is a frequent critic of the European government, but his comments carry fresh weight given Greece's emergence from a third European bailout and the rise of right-wing and populist parties in Germany and elsewhere across the bloc. The politician from the left-wing Syriza party, who had been invited to the European Parliament to speak about the future of Europe, described next year's vote as more than just one more election. He said it will be a fight of basic principles and values to defeat extreme neoliberalism and right-wing populism. He called on the bloc's pro-European and democratic forces to unite and stand side by side on the same side on history. He said the EU's failure to give democratic and effective response to modern challenges will lead to the triumph of chauvinism and rekindle nationalistic rivalry. He went on to say it will turn into a fragmented continent, a continent without cohesion, without an international role, and without a future. Stavros Mavrodouas, Professor of Political Economy at the University of Macedonia, thought Mr. Tsipras' speech was nonsense.
Regarding the essence of Tsipras' speech, I think it's an essay in hypocrisy, and it is being pronounced mainly for internal electoral reasons. His government's public rating is crumbling because of its capitulation to the EU and the IMF and its austerity policies. For this reason, Tsipras tries to revamp himself as a progressive European fighter and asks for a socially sensitive and solidary European Union. I think this is nonsense. The European Union is an imperialist organization where its dominant core around Germany exploits its peripheral economies, and the EU collectively exploits other countries outside it. This cannot be reformed, and this has been proven particularly during these years of the Eurozone crisis, where core countries treated the peripheral ones like pariahs.
Mr. Tsipras also criticised Europe's handling of security and said this could have helped bolster support for right-wing parties. It comes after several European countries, including France and Belgium, have seen attacks by Islamist militants in recent years. He said the issue at stake is existential for Europe, the handling so far of the financial crisis, the refugee crisis and a security crisis has exposed huge deficiencies and contradictions. Greece has been a gateway into the European Union for hundreds of thousands of refugees who have arrived since 2015 from Syria and other war-torn countries in the Middle East and Africa. But the Greek Prime Minister said when other countries were unilaterally violating European decisions and raising fences, crisis hit Greece, resisted the sirens of hatred. Greece's recent economic woes were part of the sovereign debt crisis that hit Europe starting back in 2009. It also affected Portugal, Cyprus, Spain and Ireland. The European Union currently faces a broad range of challenges, including migration management, the UK's departure from the EU, and the rise of right-wing populism, which have led to internal disagreements among its 28 member states and could significantly impact its future direction. But the Greek Prime Minister's speech took place the day before European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker will deliver his State of the Union address to the same Parliament. Mr Juncker is expected to address migration policy, such as by proposing to strengthen the EU's external borders. Conservatives and populist governing coalitions in Austria, Italy and many other Central European countries have pushed for closing Europe's borders, while other nations have called for greater solidarity and redistribution of asylum seekers. Now, at the height of the migration flow in 2015, Greece had been the landing port for hundreds of thousands of refugees, and Mr Tsipras called for reforms to the EU asylum system while underscoring that his country had done what it could to manage refugee flows within the framework of international law. And despite Mr Tsipras' warnings, Mr Mavrodouas believes this will be nothing new for the European Union, as it is struggling to stay relevant.
Well, I think that the EU is a crumbling house. It is riddled with internal contradictions. and also its attempt to challenge the US supremacy has failed utterly. Now, the danger is obvious since the EU cannot manufacture a compromise between the different and competing between themselves European elites on the one hand, and on the other hand, the European Union as a whole faces growing popular discontent, because the European Union and its policies are essentially anti-popular in Europe. They suppress wages, they liberalize labor markets, they have increased misery to popular classes. So the European Union is indeed crumbling. I don't know how they will succeed in managing these growing contradictions in the future.
Speaking of getting out of financial crisis, the Greek Premier said that his nation could serve an example for others on how it's dealt with economic crisis without succumbing to extremism. He said Greece is no longer part of the problem, but rather the solution. He went on to say very few believed they could pull it off, but they did. That's referring to the country's adherence to painful economic constraints imposed by Eurozone and international creditors. Mr. Mavrodouas doesn't think the Greek Prime Minister will be taken seriously in the European Union.
There was a reaction against the Tsipras speech by first the European right wing, because Tsipras appeared as lecturing them, whereas they know he's on his knees. So there was an attack on him for saying big words again. There was also a reaction by the Social Democratic wing, more measured, because it is well known that the European Social Democracy courts with Syriza and wants to enlist Syriza in its ranks. Contrary to the US coverage, the coverage in the European media was much more negative.
While Mr. Tsipras highlighted falling Greek unemployment and rising growth, the country's economic situation remains precarious. The Prime Minister promised to continue undertaking economic reforms and keeping national finances stable, but at the same time he spoke proudly of fulfilling EU's financial requirements, and he accused the bloc's fetish and neoliberalism austerity policy of fueling the rise of right-wing populism across Europe. He called for the EU to deliver a more democratic and social reforms for its citizens. Jordan Brooks, Radio Sputnik.
Radio Sputnik. The UK government